Hello everyone, here we are. We're going to start now on the 12 minor prophets. That's what the last books here in the Old Testament are. These are called the minor prophets. They're not Isaiah, they're not Ezekiel, they're not Jeremiah. Now Hosea was during the time of Isaiah, so this was before the captivity, and his message was similar to Isaiah's, and I believe there are some prophecies of Jesus in there that we will see and read, but his ministry was a little different. He was talking about the same things: idol worship, unfaithfulness, adultery, etc. But his life and his family, I should say his wife and his family, were a picture of what he was prophesying about. And oftentimes we do preach out of our own personal experience. You've certainly heard me preach out of mine. And his wife was named Gomer, and I believe she was a prostitute. Either way, she was very unfaithful to him, as a prostitute would be. She was an adulterous woman. So this is before the Babylonian captivity. So let's get started. There are 14 chapters here. Some of them are very short. Matter of fact, quite a few of them are short. So we should be through with this book very quickly. Okay, so here we go. Hosea 1. The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, son of Beeri, B-E-E-B-E-E-R-I, during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. And we remember Hezekiah, he was a good king. Kings of Judah, and during the reign of Jeroboam, son of Joash, king of Israel. Okay. I believe Jeroboam was a not so good king and caused people to worship the Canaanite god Baal, who was called a storm god, and the Asherah god, which was a fertility goddess, and that's where the Asherah poles come in that they were setting up and worshiping. Okay, so here we go. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her. For like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord." So he married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call him Jezreel, Jezreel, because I will soon punish the house of Jehu, Jehu, for the massacre at Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of Israel. In that day I'll break Israel's bow in the valley of Jezreel." So the Lord is instructing him to marry an adulterous woman, have children, and then he's going to name these children as prophecies against Israel. Gomer conceived again and gave birth to a daughter. Then the Lord said to Hosea, "Call her Lo Rahama, which means not loved. For I will no longer show love to Israel, that I should at all forgive them. Yet I will show love to Judah, and I'll save them." Now you remember, this is when there were two kingdoms, okay? There was Judah and there was Israel, and Judah consisted of Benjamin and Judah, those tribes, okay? The rest of the tribes were Israel. "Yet I will show love to Judah, and I will save them, not by bow, sword, or battle, or by horses and horsemen, but I, the Lord their God, will save them." Gomer conceived again. And after she had weaned Lo Ruhamah, Gomer had another son. Then the Lord said, "Call him Lo Ammi, which means not my people. For you are not my people, and I'm not your God." God's getting angry here. "Yet the Israelites will be like the sand on the seashore, which can't be measured or counted. In the place where it was said to them, 'You're not my people,' they will be called children of the living God." There's that comeuppance. There's that regathering of the people that he loves. There's that good thing after being rejected by the Lord and perhaps punished. There's that comeback. In the same place that you were rejected is the place that they will be called the children of the living God. Thank you, God, for this God, huh? The people of Judah and the people of Israel will come together. They will appoint one leader and will come up out of the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. Hosea 2. Say of your brothers, my people, and of your sisters, my loved one. Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she's not my wife, and I'm not her husband. This is the Lord speaking through Hosea. Let her remove the adulterous look from her face and the unfaithfulness from between her breasts. Otherwise, I'll strip her naked and make her as bare as on the day she was born. I'll make her like a desert, turn her into a parched land, and slay her with thirst. I'll not show my love to her children because they're children of adultery. Their mother has been unfaithful and has conceived them in disgrace. She said, I'll go after my lovers who give me my food and my water, my wool and my linen, my olive oil and my drink. Therefore, I'll block her path with thorn bushes. I'll wall her in so she cannot find her way. She'll chase after her lovers, but not catch them. She'll look for them, but not find them. Then she'll say, I'll go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now. She has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Betrayal is so painful, people. Therefore, I will take away my grain when it ripens, and my new wine when it's ready. I'll take back my wool and my linen intended to cover her naked body. So now I'll expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers. No one will take her out of my hands. I'll stop all her celebrations, her yearly festivals, her new moons, her Sabbath days, all her appointed festivals. I'll ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were her pay from her lovers. I'll make them a thicket, and wild animals will devour them. I'll punish her for the days she burned incense to the Baals. She decked herself with rings and jewelry and went after her lovers, but me she forgot, declares the Lord. I'm telling you, people, betrayal is such a painful, painful feeling. Therefore, I'm now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. There I will give her back her vineyards. Here comes the mercy. And will make the valley of Achor a door of hope. There she will respond as in the days of her youth, as in the day she came up out of Egypt. In that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master. I will remove the names of the Baals from her lips. No longer will their names be invoked. In that day, I'll make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, the birds in the sky, and the creatures that move along the ground. Bow and sword and battle I will abolish from the land so that all may lie down in safety. I will betroth you to me forever. In love, I will betroth you in righteousness and justice, in love and compassion. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord. In that day I'll respond, declares the Lord. I'll respond to the skies, and they will respond to the earth, and the earth will respond to the grain, the new wine, and the olive oil, and they will respond to Jezreel. I will plant her for myself in the land. I'll show my love to the one I called not my beloved one, not my loved one. I will say to those who called not my people, you are my people, and they will say, you are my God. Hosea 3. The Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another man and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites, though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes. Remember they made those cakes to the Queen of Heaven? Put a little stamp that represented her on them. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lethek of barley. Lethek is L-E-T-H-E-K. It must be a measure. Then I told her, you're to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I'll behave the same way towards you. So she must have been somewhere where he had to buy her back or buy her the first time. I don't know. For the Israelites will live many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred stones, without ephod or household gods. Afterward, the Israelites will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come trembling to the Lord and to his blessings in the last days. Hosea 4. Hear the word of the Lord, you Israelites, because the Lord has a charge to bring against you who live in the land. There's no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. There's only cursing, lying, murder, stealing, and adultery. They break all bounds, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Because of this, the land dries up, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts of the field, the birds in the sky, and the fish in the sea are swept away. But let no one bring a charge, let no one accuse another, for your people are like those who bring charges against a priest. You stumble day and night, and the prophets stumble with you. So I'll destroy your mother. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. That's a very famous scripture. Because you've rejected knowledge, I also reject you as my priests. Because you've ignored the law of your God, I'll also ignore your children. The more priests there were, the more they sinned against me. They exchanged their glorious God for something disgraceful. They feed on the sins of my people and relish their wickedness, and it'll be like people, like priests. I'll punish both of them for their ways and repay them for their deeds. They'll eat, but not have enough. They'll engage in prostitution, but not flourish. Because they've deserted the Lord to give themselves to prostitution, old wine and new wine, take away their understanding. Because they have deserted the Lord to give themselves to prostitution, old wine and new wine take away their understanding. My people consult a wooden idol, and a diviner's rod speaks to them. A spirit of prostitution leads them astray. They're unfaithful to their God. They sacrifice on the mountaintops and burn offerings on the hills, under oak, poplar, and terebinth, where the shade is pleasant. Therefore, your daughters turn to prostitution, and your daughters-in-law to adultery. I'll not punish your daughters when they turn to prostitution, nor your daughters-in-law when they commit adultery, because the men themselves consort with harlots and sacrifice with shrine prostitutes. A people without understanding will come to ruin. Though you, Israel, commit adultery, don't let Judah become guilty. Don't go to Gilgal, don't go up to Beth-aven, and don't swear, as surely as the Lord lives. The Israelites are stubborn like a stubborn heifer, a cow. How then can the Lord pasture them like lambs in a meadow? Ephraim is joined to idols. Leave them alone. Even when their drinks are gone, they continue their prostitution. In other words, even when they're through being drunk, they continue to prostitute. Their rulers dearly love shameful ways. A whirlwind will sweep them away, and their sacrifices will bring them shame. Okay, so that was Hosea 4. So we're going to do Hosea 5. We might as well go on since these are so short. Hosea 5. Hear this, you priests. Pay attention, you Israelites. Listen, royal house. This judgment is against you. You've been a snare at Mizpah, a net spread out on Tabor. The rebels are knee-deep in slaughter. I'll discipline all of them. I know all about Ephraim. Israel isn't hidden from me. Ephraim, you've now turned to prostitution. Israel is corrupt. Their deeds do not permit them to return to their God. A spirit of prostitution is in their heart. They don't acknowledge the Lord. Israel's arrogance testifies against them. The Israelites, even Ephraim, stumble in their sin. Judah also stumbles with them. When they go with their flocks and herds to seek the Lord, they won't find him. He's withdrawn himself from them, and that's a terrible feeling when the Lord pulls away from you. They are unfaithful to the Lord. They give birth to illegitimate children. I'm going to tell you a story about that in a minute. When they celebrate their new moon feasts, he'll devour their fields. Sound the trumpet in Gibeah, the horn in Ramah. Raise the battle cry in Bethaven. Lead on Benjamin. Ephraim will be laid waste on the day of reckoning. Among the tribes of Israel, I'll proclaim what is certain. Judah's leaders are like those who move boundary stones. And remember, they're never to move boundary stones, especially for widows and orphan children. I will pour out my wrath on them like a flood of water. Ephraim is oppressed, trampled in judgment, intent on pursuing idols. I'm like a moth to Ephraim, like rot to the people of Judah. In other words, an inconvenience, a bother. You know how moths eat clothes, just get away, and a moth flickering around your head. When Ephraim saw his sickness and Judah his sores, then Ephraim turned to Assyria. Assyria was the strong nation then, and sent to the great king for help. But he's not able to cure you, not able to heal your sores. For I'll be like a lion to Ephraim, like a great lion to Judah. I'll tear them to pieces and go away. I'll carry them off with no one to rescue them. Then I'll return to my lair until they've borne their guilt and seek my face. In their misery, they will earnestly seek me. Wow. Okay, so that's a good one for me to tell this story. When I was first became a Christian, I was 17, and I walked with the Lord for a couple of years. Now, along with that, my boyfriend, my very first real love, had led me to Christ. And we came to an impasse in our relationship where it was, let's get married, and I didn't want to. Of course, it's me. I was traumatized from the divorce that I went through. So I didn't want to get married. And so we broke up, which was extremely painful. Just horribly painful. And because I was angry at the breakup, I shook my fists at God. And I was a Christian and knew that Jesus was God, and I'd had all kinds of experiences with him already. And I walked away from God. And within 30 days, I was very angry, so my heart and my ears were closed to God. But I could feel that God had withdrawn his presence from me. And that can be a scary feeling, but I didn't know how scary. And within 30 days, I was coming home from a friend's house at about 8:30 at night, and it had just started getting dark. I believe it was in February, and it just started getting dark earlier. And I was walking home from a friend's house. I had gone back to smoking weed, and I think I'd been smoking weed with him or whatever. And, I just completely slipped away, backslidden away out of anger at the Lord. And as I was walking home, I saw a car drive by me with a guy in it kind of cruising me. And what I do when that happens is I always make a note of the license plate. So I sort of could see the license plate. It was a dealer's plate, so the numbers are small. So he drove away, didn't think about him, kept walking. When I was right at my house, I saw a man just suddenly appear on the sidewalk in front of me. And I literally heard in my mind, I heard alarm bells go off. So I started to veer across the lawn to my house. And he walked by me, and I remember the moment he got out of my peripheral vision, I believe he said hello to me, and I just sort of nodded and just kept veering towards my front door. The absolute minute he got out of my peripheral vision, he grabbed me from behind and said he was sticking a knife in my back or whatever. And, he had his hand over my mouth or whatever. I don't remember, but he raped me, okay? He dragged me up the driveway and he raped me. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to kill me. So when I found out it was just rape, I was kind of relieved, to be honest with you, okay? It's like, sure, rape me, but don't kill me. But then I started to think, well, he could kill me afterwards, because he could think I was going to report him. So an early example of my sales ability that I didn't know I had yet, I started to talk to him. And I sold him on myself, on the safety of the situation, et cetera, et cetera. He asked for my phone number as we were walking back up the driveway, back out to the street. I mean, I had him sold because I was speaking for my very life. I wanted to calm him down and make sure that he knew he was safe. And when he left me with a promise to call me, of course, I gave him a fake name and a fake number. When he left, I remember watching him walk into the night, and I came back to God, at least at that moment. And I said, "Dear Lord, I don't know who that man was, but you do. Please bring him to me, deliver him to me so that we can hold him accountable for what he just did." Now, my own mother, put it in perspective for me, and she said, look, rape is a crime as old as the hills. Doesn't make it right, but you don't have to freak out. Well, I did freak out. I went and got myself a big dog, and I went to self-defense classes, and I got counsel, and I got through it. I realized it wasn't my fault. I wasn't wearing provocative clothing even. Not that that should have made a difference, but I just wasn't, okay? And I went to the police station right away and gave them, at first I didn't want to. When I reported the rape, I really, and this is why a lot of rapes aren't reported, because it's like, ugh, who wants to talk about this? I just want to heal from it. Well, the police came over. I went to my father's house. I didn't tell the guy that, hey, we're in the backyard of my house. Okay. I didn't want to tell him that. And so when we parted ways, I went up the street to my father's house, up the street and around the corner. And I told my father what happened. Of course, my father was freaked out. And we called the police, and the police came over, and the police were just asking me the same things over and over. And they do this because they're trying to jog your memory. But for me, it was exhausting. And there was this one tall black woman police officer. She was really beautiful. And she kept saying, "Are you sure that's all you can remember?" And she was leaving the house even, like she was driving me nuts because she kept asking me. And as she's leaving the house and I'm like, ready to shut the door, she puts her foot in the door and she goes, "Are you sure that's all you remember?" And it got through to me that time. And I literally stopped and I said, "You know what? A car cruised me before it happened and I have the license plate." Well, I didn't have the exact license plate, and I thank God for that woman cop because she got me to speak that which I hadn't spoken yet. But because I didn't know the two instances were related. I didn't know the guy in the car cruising me was the guy that raped me because he just disappeared up the street, So the license plate number wasn't exactly correct, but I knew what type of car it was, and I went down to the station and did a composite, and I kept praying, "Lord, that man is in the ether. I have no idea who he is, where he is. I have no idea, but you know who he is. Please deliver him to us so we can hold him accountable for this." And within 3 days after they had the composite, the main detective, and the detectives were so kind to me and they really encouraged me to go after him, to convict, and and to go through the court and everything. And I said, "Okay, I'll do it," because they were begging me to. They said, "Women don't report this and we need it to be reported." And, excuse me. So the lead detective, they were wonderful. The lead detective was in his car. He was downtown. This was in Palo Alto, California. And he had my composite that I had just completed with the sketch artist sitting on his console in the car next to him. And the car I described, he pulled right up behind it at a stoplight. And he got out of the car and held the composite up to the man's face. He had the guy roll his window down. He held it up. He said, "You're under arrest for rape." So the Lord brought that man to me. And the end of the story is the man was a car salesman, dealer's plates, from Los Gatos. He had 2 little girls and a wife. He'd been accused of this crime before, but it didn't stick because the woman had a martini in her system. And so he was brought to court. My father looked like a bull. I mean, my father couldn't even sit still in court. He kept pacing out and getting up and having to leave. He was just so freaked out and furious. And I testified, and his sleazy, creepy lawyer, public defender, kept badgering me, and I kept telling the same story because I'd been well trained on how to be on the stand. And the judge said, this was a pretrial hearing, and the judge said, you know, there's enough evidence here. I'm convinced that this needs to go to trial. Well, before trial could happen, he did confess to forcible rape, and he was registered as a sex offender and given 8 years in prison, which I think he did 3 or 5. Well, just to tell you this as an addendum, I saw, for some reason, I looked this guy up in the last few years of my life. Just now, like in the last few years, I thought of him and I looked him up because I have forgiven him, of course. He is living in the most squalid conditions. This is a white man, could have had all the opportunity in the world, I suppose, just, you know, being white. And he was living in squalid conditions in Oregon. And it's clear that he's not harming anyone else. He's come to ruin. And so I'm telling you that story just to explain to you that when the Lord pulls his protection away from you, the enemy comes right in. Because the enemy had been wanting to harm me, clearly, because I'd been walking with the Lord for 2.5, 3 years. And then after the breakup, I got angry, walked away from the Lord after shaking my fists at him. And yet the Lord still honored me and delivered that man to me. And we held him accountable. And I healed and I survived and I forgave him and moved on, never thought about it unless it was something that was relevant to a conversation. Never felt shame over it because I know it wasn't my fault. But you do feel that way until you get the counsel that explains to you why it's not your fault. It's a very embarrassing and shameful crime. But I lived, and I'm telling you this just to tell you that the enemy will go right after you the minute that protection of the Lord gets pulled back. When you shake your fists and tell the Lord to go away, and the enemy came right in. You know, now after that, the rest is history because I went on my 7-year backslide and then came back to the Lord, and I've been back ever since. Okay, so I guess I was 27, so just about 38 years ago. So I love you very much. Tomorrow we'll pick it up with Hosea 6, and I'll see you then. You have a wonderful evening. Pray for me. I can feel the enemy trying to get me with depression because I'm in a very exploitive situation at work, and it's really hurting me. And if I could leave, I would, but I can't leave. And so I'm in a situation where I'm being forced to go against myself. We'll see how long that lasts. I love you very much. Please pray for me. Love you. Bye-bye.